This episode contains a discussion of a highly sensitive nature, including violence, war, suicide, and other topics that may be triggering for some individuals. Listener discretion is advised.
When I was like 13, 14, it was Rage Against the Machine. And by that time, I even considered myself to be like an extreme right-winger, like a right-winger, whatever. So it really like opened me up, like to, I don't know, to everything, to asking questions about the roles of these wars and, everything that's fucked up, you know, it was specifically the DVD, the Battle of Los Angeles. They have like lots of like cutscenes and stuff between it, and they do say at one point, like, they say a Jew in Germany, a Palestinian in Israel. And I was like, I can't be mad at these guys because they're definitely right. I just need to check out what's up.
That's Adi from Ragum. Ragum are a grindcore punk band from Haifa, Israel. In over 5 years of podcasting and speaking to bands from around the world, I've never spoken to a band from Israel, and I was quite curious about the scene there, especially when it comes to punk and grindcore. So I jumped on the opportunity to have a chat with Adi and find out more about it. Before we get into my chat with Adi, if you want to hear more such chats with extreme metal or metal bands from around the world, hit follow or subscribe on the podcast platform that you're listening to this episode, or follow me on Instagram or Twitter, X. Just search for Trendcrusher. Now let's get into my chat with Adi. Hi Adi, welcome to the podcast.
Hello, Peter.
So,
Namaskar.
Yeah, namaskar, and should I say salam? I don't know how you guys greet each other.
Salam, shalom, ahlan, sahlan, akhshili ayakar.
Wow, you guys have a lot of greetings. But first of all, I must say thanks for taking time out to do this chat. We've been going back and forth on email trying to kind of figure out time. So I'm glad we finally got the time to do this.
Oh, yeah. I'm very happy with it.
Yeah. And, I must give a huge shout out to Hassan from Multinational Corporations, Zanjeer. I actually had Shiraz on the podcast from Multinational Corporations the last time, and Hassan hit me up and said, hey, I don't know how comfortable you are, but there's a band from Haifa I think you might really like since you're into grindcore, and they're called Ragum. So I'm like, why not? Hit me up. Let me check out their music. And fast forward a few weeks, here we are doing the chat. So thanks a lot, Hassan, for doing this introduction.
Oh, yeah. And I want to take the opportunity to give another shout out for him, because this dude has been doing so much for us. Really, like, Big H, you're the best. You have, like, I don't have the words how to appreciate just the amount of people that he's told to go listen to us, and the way he's promoting, not us, but basically, anything that catches his mind and his heart. So, we're super grateful. Shukran ktir, Habib Albi.
Now, let's start off, right? Because it's not often that I talk to a band from the region. And before we kind of hit record, I was kind of asking you a few questions. I was very curious. So let's go back to the very start, and maybe let's go back to your background, Adi. Like, how did you get into metal, hard rock? Like, what was the initial stage for you?
Okay, so I remember stuff very vividly in my childhood. I wasn't a pothead back then. I actually remember I was 6 years old. I was with my babysitter. She was watching MTV. And then, the Limp Bizkit Rolling video came. And, it caught my attention from the first moment, like the way he flips his head. I'm like, all right, Panda, gotta keep on rolling, baby. And then the guitars kick in, and I'm like, what? What the fuck? Okay, so that's what guitars like supposed to do. That's what I'm trying to figure out. Like, okay, that's the cool stuff that guitars do. That's why guitars look cool, because they sound like that. And it got me like both into hip hop and metal. First into hip hop, And I spent my time listening to gangster rap at a very young age. And that's how I got my English, by the way. That's my English is kind of black as well. So, so I can say I really got into metal when I was around the age of 14. I was getting more into Rage Against the Machine. That's also like really set the foundations for everything I think right now. And yeah, so like I started listening to Slayer and all kinds of other stuff, and it just went downhill from there. I listened to Morbid Angel, one of my favorite bands still, but it wasn't enough. And you can always find ways to make it even worse. Until I found my home in grindcore and everything else under the title of grind.
Okay, so quick question then. First grindcore band that you heard?
Wow, the first one, I'm not sure which was the first, but the first band I was really like becoming a fan of, which is still one of my all-time favorite bands, is Nasum.
Oh, fuck. I love those guys, dude. I mean, I have to be honest, right? And I think since you said Nasum, I think we can both come to an agreement. Nasum were one of those bands that it's really hard, no matter how much, no one can kind of replicate that ferocity, that sound. Oh my God, like I can probably like talk hours about Nasum.
Oh yeah, so like Nasum has that specific Swedish sound, Rotten Sound may have like you know, uh, the sound, not the vibe, but Nasum has that raw aggression that yes, you cannot replicate. But I wanted to say there is a band that I feel like they love Nasum as much as I do, and I saw them at Obscene Extreme. They're called Distaste from Austria, and
Oh,
holy
nice.
shit, holy fuck! Like you spend 3 days already, 2 days, I don't remember, seeing like the heaviest band on this planet, and then these guys come and just set the bar even higher. And I can sense a lot of Nazum in them. I like the fact that there's many bands that like, they take some of that Nazum vibe, they take some of that Nazum aggression sound and just turn it into something of their own. I love it.
Okay, and I swear this is the last comment I make before we
Yeah.
turn back into Ragum. Uh, One of the few bands actually that I felt had that aggression, and I'm very glad that they're back with their original members. Is I don't know if you heard a band called Wormrot from
Well,
Singapore.
I saw them as well.
Oh, lovely. So I'm very glad that Arif is back with the band.
Yeah.
And that last album that they released, his easily, it's that perfect mix of like hardcore with like grind and metal. So really looking forward to what they do next. But going back to what you're saying, I think like, you know, a lot of people, I think, if I talk to in their 30s and even younger, right? Limp Bizkit, Linkin Park, these were one of the starting acts for all of you. And it's really cool because I keep talking about the story of the first time I saw a music video of Linkin Park. I was living in Abu Dhabi at that time. And it kind of blew my mind that there was someone screaming and there was this kind of heavy, distorted guitars. Take me to that point where you realized from, hey, this is music that I really enjoy, to, hey, I want to make such music. Where did that kind of come from? And paint a picture for those of us who don't live in the region or are unaware. How do you kind of go about finding similar musicians? Like, is metal a huge deal at all in Haifa and the area?
I can't say it's huge, but it is big. You have a crowd. Like, you like let's go back to like the beginning of the question before I forget about that because it relates to that. But for me, music, since I was three, like when I was born, I first understood two things. I understood music and I understood dogs. That's it. So I always knew I'm going to do music. It was always forever my main thing. Everything I'm about, everything I'm around, like I dig and research about other stuff. But music has always been my main interest, like the main thing I do. So it was obvious for me. And when I was 14, I realized I'm like my rap career is not going to happen and I need to make heavy music and grab a guitar.
It's interesting that you also mentioned Rage Against the Machine, right? Because they've clearly, you know, political band. Again, look at the context of when they released their music, right? In the 90s, where US was completely different. And one of the beauties, I think, about Rage Against the Machine is even now in 2024, they're still as relevant as they were back then, right? And it's not like things have got any better in the US. Was that also part of your kind of, if I may say, understanding of political and how music can be used for political ways also?
Oh, definitely. Definitely. It was, I think, specifically like what transitioned me from like being really heavy on hip hop to really going back into metal and stuff when I was like 13, 14. It was Rage Against the Machine. And by that time, I even considered myself to be like an extreme right winger, like a right winger, whatever. So it really like opened me up, like to, I don't know, to everything, to asking questions about the roles of these wars and all everything that's fucked up. You know, it was specifically the DVD, the Battle of Los Angeles. They have like lots of like cutscenes and stuff between it, and they do say at one point, like they say a Jew in Germany, a Palestinian in Israel, and I was like, I can't be mad at these guys because they're definitely right. I just need to check out what's up. So yeah, that specifically them were like a major turning point, both musically and like with my awareness of the situation.
Okay, so at which point did you like start bands, and how did you go about like kind of finding people who were very similar, politically conscious compared to you, right? Because I'm sure it's not, I mean, first of all, finding a metalhead is not easy. Finding a musician who's into metal is another thing. And then finding someone who's very similar political mind to yours is even more. So you keep kind of like process of elimination of sorts. So how did that kind of work for you?
First of all, I've been active in bands since I tried to start the band when I was 15. Didn't work out so well because like, they were good musicians, they were into metal, but nothing heavier than Lamb of God. I love Lamb of God, but I don't want to play that. So yeah, I couldn't find the people. And fast forward 2014, I joined my first sort of active band in Haifa. Because if you want to go and find musicians and who do specific stuff even more so, then you only have Haifa or Tel Aviv. And fuck Tel Aviv. I'm not living there. Like unfucking livable. I lived there for 4 months. Fuck that place. But yeah, basically just moved to Haifa, started like joined a few bands and started working. And it was about 3 years ago, I think, I realized I just need to do my own stuff.
Okay. And so currently Ragum is just you. Could you tell
I
me?
don't know. We're three. There's
Okay.
three of us. Like, it's my baby. Yeah, you can say that. It's like the things I want to say, my lyrics, my riffs mostly. But I have two people with me that I could not have done it without them. And the first one is Adham, our bass player. Um, because this guy to me is more than like a partner to do music. He's like one of my best friends in life, and he's like, he's like one of the closest people to me, and it's just what I needed, like someone who gets me on all levels. And when I met him, he wasn't so familiar with like the heavier stuff, like the real like deep grindcore stuff. He used some Napalm Death, some that. But yeah, he just learned the craft, and he's been teaching me stuff because he's such a professional musically. And there's Theo, our drummer, uh, which was like everything I asked for in my life. Like I was going around with like fucking, how do you call it? Like just a rough mix of stuff I did on the computer, like first sketches, demos, and I've been going around drummers and telling them like, "Hey man, I want to start a band. Like, what do you think of that?" And they're all like, "Hey man, it's too fast. I don't think I can handle that."
Yeah. Grindcore
And then
drummers, it's not easy, right?
I go to Theo, and I'm looking at the kid, and he's listening to it, and he's like, "Hey man, that's awesome stuff, but I think we should do it like 10 BPM faster." And I'm like, "Oh my God, you're hired. Can I marry you?" Like, oh my God. And yeah, yeah. I am lucky, but I also like, I did my job on finding the right people and being in the right mindset. And yeah, it works out. I'm just reaping my previous hard work, and now we're just working hard on other stuff.
Okay, we've talked quite a bit. I think it's time before we get further in our conversation, let's give all our listeners a taste of Ragum. So you have an album, I don't know, is it an album, EP? I'm not sure,
We
titled,
call it an album.
yeah.
We
And
consider it an album.
okay, and I know I don't speak Hebrew, so I'm gonna butcher this, but how do you say the name? Beyouv?
Beyouv.
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 Okay. Which is actually, thanks to translation from you, means sewer. So
Yeah.
tell me a bit about it, and which song would you like everyone to hear?
Oh man, yeah. I don't like which song I want to play. I don't know. You pick one. I don't know. Pick whatever you liked. I don't have a specific song. Like,
Let's hear the title track because I'm very curious about it and why you're called that, right? And
okay.
why is it the title track?
Well, it's the title track because it felt like, I mean, the track existed before I wanted it to be the title. Um, but it just felt right. And I don't know, it was a good idea to do that. Like, I think it's very reflective of everything I'm trying to say. And I chose the name because I feel like I grew up in a sewer of ideas, like a sewer of human thought. Basically, like among the worst ideas, the worst behaviors, the worst mentalities humans ever had, but in a very concentrated, densely concentrated place. So yeah, I feel like I live in a sewer, and all I'm doing all my life is just cleaning all the shit they put on me. And you know, it's that.
Okay, cool. So I think it's best time that we have everyone hear the track. Here it is.
depends on one thing and one thing only: a steady supply of idiots. Idiots just like you.
And that was Beyouv by Ragum, and I've got Adi from the band with me. Now, I want you to kind of break down a couple of things about the album for me, right? Let's start from the beginning. You said that, this is something that you've been wanting to do for a while and you kind of got the right musicians together. What was it like kind of writing a lot of this music, right? Take me to that process. Like, obviously, you live in a region where there's a lot of turmoil, there's so much happening around, right? So, to a certain extent, I feel that's inspiration of sorts, but how do you kind of channel all of that into music, right? And explain that to me.
It's like I have no other choice but channeling it to music, because otherwise I would have done, I don't know, some very extreme shit that I don't really want to do. But yeah, that's the best way I have of, first of all, dealing with the situation. Like, fuck, I have a regional war raging right next to me, sometime falling not too far from me, and I am on the evil side. And I keep seeing that evil in front of my eyes, and I've been exploring that evil for since I was born, but like I'm very aware of it for the past 10 years. So, and much of it, like I realized actually being an IDF soldier, and that's like a major part of what that's about. Like me being in the army, realizing how wrong everything is. And from that really low place that it put me, then I just had to put it to music. It's actually one of our songs, Degel, is about, how I felt inside the army. And, trigger warning, self-harm. But the first two sentences were, God forbid, a part of my suicide note in the army, which I later said, you know what, fuck you guys. I'm not dying for you, and I'm not dying because of you, And then I made a song out of it, which is like, I don't know, biggest sense of victory I had. So that's the inspiration for all of that. And it just that point of view.
Okay, so how long ago, if you don't mind me asking, did you end up serving, and before you kind of formed Ragum and all of this music kind of came out?
How long have I been in the army?
Yeah, no, how long ago were you in the army?
Oh, it was 10 years ago.
Okay.
I joined like I got conscripted. It's either that or going to jail. So I got conscripted in the summer of 2012, and I got released in 2014.
Okay, so you did the mandatory couple of years.
No, I did only a year and a half. I was supposed to do 3 years, but I would have never made it this far in the army. So yeah, I did only a year and a half. Then I got like a mental discharge from being depressed and unable to function as a human being, out of guilt. And it's more than guilt. It's just being in the wrong place with people, with the wrong kind of people, doing the wrong kind of stuff for the wrong kind of purpose. So it was that. And alhamdulillah, I'm good now. But yeah, that's the inspiration for that. And that's where I come from. Because I saw it with my own eyes. You can't lie to me. You can't bullshit me. Ain't no hasbara is gonna work on me.
Got it. And so, of course, your perspective also is very different, right? Because compared to a lot of armchair activists, you've actually kind of been in the army, you've kind of seen it and been firsthand there. But again, with the kind of music that you'll write, right? And what I really love is just the way, your press release put it. It's about military occupation. It's about state-sponsored racism and the erasure of the Arab Jewish identity. So it's very clear what your music is about. How difficult it is to get probably someone to kind of record this music, right? Because you're
Nah, not a
literally
problem.
not a problem at all.
No, like the guy who records us is one of my best friends because that's the whole point about like having a punk scene, a DIY scene. You don't need those people. I have the most talented people I know, like most of them. I know lots of talented people, but many of them are from the punk scene, from the hardcore scene, from the underground scene. So, like the man who's recording us, his name is David, and he's the also the lead singer of Alien Fucker. So he's doing like he's recording many bands now. I mean, you just have good, very professional, very like know what they're doing people that are working independently. Like we have a studio that we do rehearsals and stuff, and we can record stuff there. So yeah, we have him for like every recording need we have. The scene here is working. It's big, and we have people like that we can work with. We initially prefer working with them, so it's all good.
Which also kind of brings me to like a couple of more questions, right? Like the one is a, of course, like you mentioned, you all identify more with the punk scene, right? So there is, to a certain extent, if I want to call it, the counterculture of sorts, right? Which is typically what you see punk alternative culture as part of. How does that kind of function? Tell me about some of the bands that are part of this movement of sorts, right?
Okay, so like the punk scene has been here since like forever. You had bands back in like late 80s, early 90s singing against the occupation, singing against military service. You had bands like Nefei Neatza, and which the guys later on formed Dir Yassin and Smartut Kachol Lavan, which literally means like yellow, not yellow, fucking blue and white rug in Hebrew. So yeah, these guys laid the foundation for everything that I do. Like I was in the army listening to these guys, getting educated about how fucked up everything I do is. But it's not getting educated, it's just affirming that yeah, it's fucked up. It's fucked up. I see it with my own eyes. I just have to affirm it from somewhere else that it is fucked up. So we had these guys, and now we have many bands who are active, and these guys have been our back against the backlash we have, because now we have the Blacklist compilation, which came out, and it's full of bands from all over the years who are opposing Zionism, who are opposing occupation.
Is
So
this
I'm proud.
the compilation? And I'm getting maybe I'll get the name wrong. Met Ba Pogo? Is that the one that you all were part of?
Yeah, Met Bapogo is more of like I can say it's more of like the label, the title of like all sorts of compilations and our festivals.
Okay.
And that's basically my buddy Roy.
Okay.
And so there's the Blacklist compilation. That's what I'm talking about.
Ah,
Yeah, it's
okay. I
under
see that.
because it's they passed around like all the right wingers, metalheads. They passed around a list of bands who are like either affiliated with us or have spoken against Israel and what it's doing. So we just took that blacklist. We say, hey, you guys missed some bands, and just did a whole compilation album with the funds going, I think, directly to Gaza or to something in the West Bank. I'm not sure because I'm not the one in charge of it.
Yeah, it
But
says
yeah,
Gaza. I'm just looking
Gaza,
at it right
yeah.
now. But so it's interesting, and I want you to kind of talk more about this part. But I'm curious at this point, why sing in Hebrew then, right? was that something that you were very clear from the outset that this music will be in Hebrew?
Yeah, I feel like it's the only thing I can do in Hebrew and really feel, comfortable with it. Because many of the lyrics, and we just recently released the lyrics, because I felt, I like we said, before the recording, I'm like way beyond the levels of giving a fuck anymore. So I released the lyrics, and it's lots of blaming. It's like lots of stuff is just pointing the finger saying you guys are completely messed up. And it's things that you can say to I said it to their face more than once, to more than one man, to more than a few people. But they're not listening. So when they don't listen, you either scream at someone who listens, or I have music. My privilege ass has music. Some people only have their gun to make someone listen. So, I'm lucky to have that. I'm very grateful to have that. That's a part of me being a privileged guy.
And at this point, I definitely want to know more about the kind of backlash that you're dealing with, right? Like you said, you've got literally the blacklist, right? Um, what's that like? I mean, again, I'm guessing since you talked about privilege, right? Like you're still doing it on music. Day-to-day life is another different form of hell, right? So tell me about that.
Not for us. Not for us. I can't say that. When I have people living under military occupation who has for the past 3 years become much more violent, and for the past 1 year became even more violent, I can say I live in hell. I live relatively safe in my nice bachelor's apartment. I have my Xbox, I have my job, and even like stuff is happening outside, I can work from home. We sit at bars, I go to my cafe, I sit there, we practice music. No, we don't. Israel is hell. Yeah. But, I'm on the privileged side. I don't feel like I even have like much of a right to complain. Because, even the stuff that does get to me, even when the rockets come falling right next to me, which fortunately, alhamdulillah, did not happen, subhanallah. But, that's on Israel. They started this stuff, and Israelis just refuse to see it. So I can say I live in hell.
Yeah, I mean, thanks for clarifying that, right? Because I think like
Okay, yeah,
there's
because it's
there's a
like
lot there's a lot of like I think misinformation, and I think we live in an age where there's so much being spread on social media. I mean, we kind of talked about it before we hit record, right? I think, and it's strange, especially like coming from India, because India and Israel have like good relations, right? Like you keep seeing these messages going in from our prime minister to your prime minister president. I don't know. I mean, does it
Oh
really
yeah,
matter?
lots of like arms trade and stuff like
Yeah,
that.
yeah, right. So it's crazy, but yeah, tell me about like what the backlash is like and what is, I don't know, the different perspective that you're seeing to your music, right?
Um, yeah, so like I did expect to have some sort of backlash. I didn't think it would become, like the funny incident that it became. So like I felt the backlash only like mainly online. Usually when people came up to me in person, it was like very, they were either like, "Hey man, I think you're going a bit too far, but I appreciate you voicing your opinion." And so like the bad stuff was only online. Because the thing about Israel is they are really the like what you're seeing the IDF doing now, like the cowardness you're seeing. I lived it. I had kids trying to fight me all of my childhood, and when I come to fight them, they just run away and throw stones or try to spit at you. Because it's something about the Israeli mentality. So I never felt like, even I maybe felt like tiny hostility at certain shows, but nothing serious. And I don't know. We're like, some people know us, some people know our background, like the places we grew up in. Like I can speak for me and Adham. Like we come from places like it's kind of tough places to grow up in. So like I don't think someone will try to get violent with us. Because like, we don't see it as much of a problem. We can handle that. Not that we encourage violence. But yeah, nothing really happened in real life. They were campaigning. They were like, how you see those fucking Hasbara activists, like, being really like, oh my God, like, see, please, I am offended by this. خلاص يعني ما you know it was basically fun. It was basically people having a tantrum all over my inbox and shit like that, and giving me lots of traffic. More than that, some friends, some pro-Palestinian, some Palestinian people that I do appreciate, they were a bit of like, looking at us and like, who the fuck are these guys with their Hebrew, you know, saying relevant stuff in Hebrew, but who the fuck are these guys? I mean, look at us like we were like Mossad or some shit. I get that. I don't blame them. But it really like cleared it for many people. We were legit. We ain't fucking around. We're only fucking around with the Zios, fucking around with their heads, making fun of them. So yeah, it worked. It worked incredible for us.
Okay, so I mean, I'm very curious at this point, since you said that, there's this entire split uh in just like musicians. Is there a live music scene for punk music like yours? How does it kind of work out?
I mean, some venues, like bigger venues that also host like indie shows or even bigger shows, like they host some punk events. But we have our DIY spaces. It depends. It depends on the time. Like it was like we had a time in Haifa that we had two DIY venues and one like big. We got the hipster venues that let you play in it. I like them. Like we're more related to these guys than we are related to the metal scene. Like the indie. You can say it's indie or just
So like
hipsters,
alternative, yeah.
sort of.
Yeah, and so what's the turnout to shows like this? Like 50, 100?
No, it depends. It depends. It was like could have been it was between 50 to 100 like a few years ago. Now it's like 100 to any show. Our drummer plays in a band called Nobodies, and they just released an album. I think it was yesterday. You had 160 people showing up for a psychedelic grindcore band. So, it's very dynamic, just kids keep coming up out of nowhere, coming to shows. Then after 2 months, they're already like an active part of the scene, starting bands. I mean, it's incredible. And yeah, shitty times breed it. Just like the cabaret in the 20s.
Oh, thanks for telling me about this band. I mean, you definitely have to kind of link me to their music. I definitely want to play them and give them a shout out also. So,
Oh, yeah, yeah. That's our drummer, Theo. That's like his band with his childhood buddies, just ripping shit up. It's like, I don't know, it's the most creative thing I've ever heard.
Awesome. Do definitely link me out to that. I'm gonna play it later on
I
in the
should.
episode. Uh,
Yeah, yeah.
but okay, I mean, just to kind of wrap up of sorts, uh, now that you'll have Beyouv out, you've kind of got this kind of attention. Is there a plan for Ragum? What's next, if you can say so?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. So again, shout out to my homie Big H. We were speaking of multinational corporation. So our next release is a split with them. And we're recording 3 songs very soon, like in the next week. We're recording them, and then we're having another album, which is already in the process of writing. And we are coming to Europe in July.
Awesome. So you heard it first on the podcast. There's going to be a multinational corporations and Ragum split. Uh, yeah, if you didn't hear it in already in the multinational corporations episode, but yeah, everyone in Europe, keep an eye out in July. Awesome, great to hear all of that, Adi. We can definitely do this much longer, but I want to leave some more for when the split is out, and definitely probably getting Shiraz and Hassan also on the podcast. But any final words, anything else you want to add to everyone tuned in so far?
Yeah. Okay, so final words. Yeah, I keep speaking of being privileged and using your privileges. So wherever you are, if you have the privileges and if you can make punk, like I'm not speaking about like Hassan in Lahore, racking up amps and trying to make a scene. Like if you already have a scene, if you have a nice place you can play with your band at, use your fucking privilege, use your voice. Stay fucking angry, because then the music is better too. And free Palestine. Peace from the occupied interior.
Amen, man. Amen to that. And that was Adi from Ragum. Really enjoyed my chat with him and getting to understand the band and their political leanings, and also getting to know more about the music scene in Haifa. Speaking of that, Adi mentioned a band called Nobodies, which their drummer plays for. They have a new single out, Shakia Bentania. Unfortunately, that's only available on Spotify, so I can't really play it on the podcast. But I did check out their previous album, Tintunum, which released last year. Here's a track from it, Rosh Lituf.
אין מה לעשות, ככה זה החיים. רגע אחד אתה כותב על מישהו שיר, רגע אחר אתה באובסן לוקח איתו אפתי ועכשיו הכל מההתחלה.
And that was Nobodies, also from Haifa. Do check them out. I'm going to leave a link to their latest single and also their album on Bandcamp in the show notes. Before I sign off, if you're a band or a label and want to get in touch and get your music featured on the podcast, just hit me up, trendcrusher@gmail.com. I'll see you all very soon. Cheers.